Hello there, my name is TARY and I'm a psychoanalyst. In today's video, I'd like to talk about the inner critic and what to do about him, her, it, whatever it is, right? Well, I am classically trained as a Freudian psychoanalyst, but I actually like to study all sorts of different approaches and kind of synthesize the information and ask myself, what do they have in common? What's different? What do they focus on? And I actually noticed a lot of similarities. Pretty much all sorts of different approaches talk about this concept of an inner critic. Freud talked about the superego, and you can have a super judgmental superego that completely stifles your spontaneous expression. And then there's inner family systems and it's inner critic roles as well. And basically you find that even in schema therapy, you have these dysfunctional inner critic voices. So basically what happens? What is this inner critic? What do you do about it? What are the consequences of having this construct working in your psyche? Well, basically it's like this. Children really need to see their parents as being able to take care of them. It's a psychological need. And it's a psychological need because really being able to observe that their parents cannot take care of them because, I don't know, they're drug addicts or they have some sort of personality disorder or some sort of debilitating mood disorder or there's something else going on in the family, right? And parents aren't available or they are abusive or negligent or even intrusive. Well, what the child is going to do is it's going to deal with a lot of frustration and a lot of intense emotions and helplessness and terror and fear. And the psyche is designed in such a way that it actually helps us not feel certain things that would be too shocking. It would be kind of an overload of emotions. So when children are very young, the first few years of life, they develop psychological defenses to deal with these frustrating experiences. Now you have all sorts of caretakers, so you have some, frustrating experiences that have to do with normal everyday things because it's impossible for a caretaker to be attuned to a child's need 24/7, right? But then you also have very repetitive experiences and things that would constitute outright abuse or neglect, or just invasiveness as well. This just makes the child accumulate a whole lot of frustrating experiences and pain, and the psyche is activated in order to, the defense mechanisms are created, the psyche activates them in order to prevent this little child from feeling so much psychological pain. And the pain of being completely dependent, vulnerable, fragile, like babies and children are, and noticing that the only people who are there to actually take care of you aren't fit for the job, it's too much of a shock. It's overwhelmingly painful for very small children. So the psyche creates these mechanisms to prevent the child from feeling that overwhelming pain. And look at how interesting. What it does is the kid rationalizes the whole situation in the following way. It looks at those parents that cannot meet that child's needs, and instead of thinking, oh my God, they can't meet my needs, that just puts me in a horrible predicament. I mean, what am I going to do with myself? What the child actually does is think, I'm the problem here. I'm inadequate. I must be just really bad. I must be just complete trash because my godlike parents aren't, taking care of me the way that maybe, I imagine I would be. And so the child convinces himself or herself that they are inherently defective so as to preserve this view of their parents as being able and, adult and stable and all those things. And then during this period of life, the child will develop the defenses and it will also develop an inner critic. So the child comes to the conclusion that I'm inadequate, I'm just not good enough. This is in part introjected voices from the caretakers. If you hear a lot of abusive stuff, you eventually start saying it to yourself. We will actually suck our parents into our minds and have little versions of them there. I mean, Our mom or dad might have died 10 years ago, but we can sometimes still hear their voices. And it's also because, like I said, children need to see themselves as being defective so as to retain a certain level of trust in their parents and therefore not be overwhelmed psychologically. But what happens is, if you grow up and you still feel that you have to work under that pattern, those dynamics, where you have to see yourself as defective, it's not going to work for you because it's going to bring you so much pain. If you see yourself as defective, you're going to put yourself in so many situations where you're going to deal with abuse and with basically not having your needs met, and just dealing with a lot of nasty stuff, because when we don't have a very strong sense of self-worth, because we have these inner voices telling us that we're trash all the time, we don't notice that we could give ourselves better things. We don't notice that we could give ourselves everything we want and then some, right? So the thing is, we really have to get down to that core pain that caused the defense mechanisms to spring into action and activates the inner critic voice. If we don't feel that original pain, then we're just kind of in this weird loopy experience where nothing changes. Now, I'm going to give you an example of how this is done. Imagine a child that had a very punitive parent. So this child kind of developed this fear of being punished. And the fear was so intense, when your system is activated, you're going to fight, you're going to fly, or you're going to freeze. And for children, oftentimes the most common response is just freezing. And this could be simply dissociating mentally, going off else to another place so as not to be there, right? So then this kid develops this defense mechanism of dissociating at the slightest hint of shame and, oh, I'm going to get punished. I did something wrong. I'm so wrong that I'm going to get punished. The kid dissociates and ends up doing this well into adulthood. Now, this defense mechanism of dissociation doesn't work alone. It works with the inner critic. In what way? The inner critic is actually going to kind of throw kerosene in the fire. It's going to make matters worse by actually corroborating the worldview of that wounded part. So if there's this child part inside that person that even in adulthood disconnects and dissociates when he or she feels that there's punishment on the horizon, there's also this inner critic voice that pops up and says, yeah, you're going to get punished because you are trash. So there's the pain, which is, oh my God, I'm going to get punished. There's the defense mechanism, which is the dissociation. And then there's this other voice, which is like, yeah, you deserve this. You're such trash. Why aren't you better already? So many voices, right, going on and just basically blabbing off at the same time. Now, what do I think really is the key issue here? We have to get to that core pain, that terror in this particular situation that I'm painting for you guys. And we have to feel it without the inner critic telling us, oh, you're trash, you don't deserve to feel this, and without us dissociating. We have to be present enough to bypass the inner critic and bypass the dissociation so we can actually feel the terror. And how do you do this? With presence, with focus on the now, with mindfulness. So what this means is that when all of these mechanisms get activated because you're having an experience that reminds you of that one experience you had in the past where you thought you were going to be punished, so now you're dissociating, you're hearing these voices. Instead of just letting the normal programming just, repeat itself, we have to slow stuff down. It's a very simple thing to do, but it changes everything. So much happens in an automated fashion, that split second where we don't slow down. So if you actually pause and stop what you're doing, this video is being recorded during the pandemic, so you're at home a lot, you might have children and might be going crazy, but let's say you find some time. When you notice those triggers going off, it's about getting to that core pain, the terror, and bypassing all of the defenses until you get there. And this is done with presence. If you just stop what you're doing, if you just breathe in, and you observe the voices, but you don't cling to them, you can actually get down to that part of you that feels so terrified. And you can cast the light of your consciousness, of your non-judgmental observation, right? If you can look at that terror from a place of loving energy, from a place of non-judgmentalness, it can finally be felt. It doesn't sprout up because there's the dissociation or whatever defense mechanism, and then there's the inner critic that makes it even stronger. But if you're fully present and you're like, hey, let me internalize and let me go deep within, and you pause, you will find that you will train yourself to bypass those defense mechanisms and to actually feel that pain. And as you do that, you can work through any weird inner, narratives that you've been telling yourself. Things like, oh, I'm trash, I deserve this, I'm ungrateful, I'm no good. When you're in that pain, but you went there from a place of presence, and that's why you need to slow down and get grounded first before you sink into the pain. Then you can actually do something about it. Not only is it finally felt in a controlled way, because you came from a grounded place of self, right? But it can finally be felt. Okay, well, tell me what you thought about this video. Oh, wait, just one last thing. And this can be done in a number of different settings. It's great for you to do it with yourself, first and foremost. So what I'm saying, summarizing, is notice the defense mechanisms and the triggers when they happen, and actually pause, stop doing whatever you're doing, and sink into the pain in non-judgmental presence. And then from that place of self, or you're rooted in self, then you can look at that pain in a different way, and it's not bigger than you, okay? So let me know what you thought about this video. You can experience this sort of thing with your relationship with yourself, but also you can experience safety within which you can, go deep within yourself in therapy as well. If you feel if you feel that you have a trustworthy therapist and that you feel very safe in the therapeutic setting, you can definitely sink into this very painful place in therapy. And sometimes we can do it with friends who are very loving, very wise in that way, very non-judgmental. They can hold space for our pain that we haven't been able to visit in full presence without the defense mechanisms and the voices before. So let me know what you thought about this video. I'm super curious. Leave your comments below. Give me some suggestions for videos. Please follow the channel. If you're watching this on YouTube, then subscribe, follow the channel, sign up for our newsletter, and you can also follow me on Instagram. It's TARY. All right then. Thank you very much, and see you next time.